Hello and welcome to another one of our Ask the Expert sessions here on YouTube. I'm Jan Attenstedt and we're talking to Nigel Calder. And today we have another question about diesel engines. Here we go. I have a weeping diesel fuel tank in the bilge with the cabin sole and carpentry built in over it. I have a place I could add another tank, but it would require running the fuel lines higher than the fuel pump. Is this a problem? Interesting.
So the answer is no. We commonly run fuel lines where they go up and down in the boat. On many of our installations, fuel filters, for example, are above the engine to make them easy to access. So we're pulling the fuel up to that height anyway and dropping it back down. So that's not an issue, just as long as you get all of the air out of it when you first bleed the system. The other thing that I think is worth addressing here is the leaking fuel tank. Metal tanks in a boat, sooner or later they corrode. Particularly, it just drives me nuts when boat builders build a boat around a metal fuel tank or a metal water tank. It's just creating problems for the future. So all of those metal fuel tanks need to be accessible and they need to be inspected periodically, regardless of the quality of the stainless steel in them or the aluminum. Aluminum is even worse for corrosion. And then with that leaking fuel tank, of course, the fuel is going somewhere. If it's going in the bilges and he's in American waters and he pumps it over the side and the Coast Guard sees the slip, I say it's he or she, there's a serious problem and potentially a very expensive process of cleaning things up. So we need to make sure that these tanks don't leak, and we especially need to make sure that if they do leak, we don't pump it over the side.
From an environmentally
Yeah.
perspective, of course, is like even clear. I think one thing that might change though is if his tank is above the filter. If he changes the filter, he will definitely need a some sort of a valve at the tank that he can close. Otherwise, his tank will drain during a filter change.
That's also interesting, Jan, because one of the ABYC requirements is that the fuel supply line has a valve in it.
Mm.
And we see an awful lot of boats where there is no valve in that fuel supply line. And regardless of whether the tank is below or above the fuel filters or the engine or whatever, there's required to be a valve in that line. So it should be there anyway.
Mhm.
And actually, coming back to tanks for one more second, my preferred material for tanks is a ruggedly built plastic tank that's suitable for diesel fuel. If they're properly installed and all of the connections of the hoses and so on are supported, so you don't stress the connections of the plastic tank, they'll last the life of the boat, and there's no corrosion issues. And it's much, in my opinion, a much better way to go than metal tanks.
All right. Well, thanks for your take on that, Nigel. And if you guys want to learn more about diesel engines and all these installation issues, that's actually, we have a whole module in our diesel engine maintenance course. We just talk about like the proper way of installing filters, engines, tanks, where they should be placed. So make sure to check that out. I think it's going to be really helpful to many people. Thanks, Nigel, and see you guys soon.